So, what I'm going to share with you today is a little story about why I stopped beating on pedophiles while I was federally incarcerated. So, as some of you may or may not know, I was federally incarcerated from the years of 2005 all the way up until 2016, and I was in some joints that ranged from Florida all the way out to Texas. Within these joints, particularly when I first came into the federal system, it was a common theme that pedophiles do not land on the compound. As soon as a pedophile comes on the compound, as soon as when anybody comes on a compound, the first thing that we do is check their paperwork. Hey man, what you in prison for? You got documentation? Let me see that. Usually takes a couple weeks. So a lot of times individuals will come on the compound and they're given about 2 weeks to get their paperwork together, things of that nature. Now, when a sketchy individual comes on the compound, we automatically judge this person a certain way. You know, pedophiles have kind of like that greasy, snaky weasel look to them, right? So when we see that, we kind of automatically already know what it is, and we start pressing for the paperwork, or we may even go to our case manager and ask our case manager what their issue is. So it's knowing that at this time, it was just a common thing, right? It was just a common thing. And you could beat them as bad as you wanted to. You could damn near kill them. In a lot of instances, they do get killed. And the guards just come and pull them off the compound. And then that's it. Life goes back to normal again until another one hits the compound. So it became just a normal thing. It just became a normal routine. And as I progressed through my federal sentence, I started landing at different spots until ultimately I landed up out in Beaumont, Texas. Beaumont, Texas is ran as for the white people, particularly by the Aryan Brotherhoods of Texas. That's their hub spot. That's their home spot, right outside of Houston and all of that crap. So it's knowing that even though that I'm an independent and I'm from Florida, I don't belong to their car. I don't belong to their ideology. I still have to fit within the structure that they've created on that compound because they have all the pull, right? Even case managers are in the pockets of these ABTs. So as life goes on within this institution, I get a call up from the case manager. Now, you have to understand, it's kind of hard for me to fix my life and correct my criminal activities and my mental health, my trauma. It's hard for me to correct these things when I'm constantly beating the hell out of other human beings to bloody pulps, right? And just taking all of my darkness and hostility and anger, all my selfishness and narcissism I'm taking out on this human being. And so it's a reason to, it's an excuse to, it's like free game. So on this one particular day, the case manager calls me up to his office and sits me down and swings his monitor over my way and shows me this individual with the last name Jameson. Now, Jameson hasn't hit the compound yet, but he is, and he's coming to this unit. And the case manager shows me this here and shows me the details of his charge. And what Jameson was involved in was him and his wife were actually mailing their children around the country. There was a ring of them, and they were mailing their children around to each other to have sex with each other's children, right? So after I read this and I look at the case manager and I just kind of, nod my head because I know what all of this means, and he just told me, he's like, look, I don't want to deal with this at all. I don't want this dude on my caseload. I can't do it, and then that was it. So I got up and I left. I went around to each of the different gangs in the unit. I went to the speaker of the unit for the independents, things of that nature. I mean, this is all commonplace, so everybody already knows, but you still have to let people know that something's getting ready to go down because they may have wine, they may have contraband, whatever. They got to put all of this up. So I let everybody know tomorrow morning, Saturday morning, whoop the whoop, blah, blah, blah. And then we all went to, lockdown, went to sleep. Saturday morning comes, I get up, and I'm hyped. Everybody's going to the chow hall. I walk right out of the room, walk down the tier, walk right into Jameson's room. He's sitting on the bed. He goes to get up, and I just plant him right in the chest with a front kick, and just went to work. And from that point on, in the middle of that, it's very important. In the middle of that came a washing, a peace. That hostility and anger, it was all gone in that moment. And I looked down at this bloodied man that I'm holding in my hands like a child. And he's sobbing and he's crying. And that is exactly how I saw him in that moment when that peace overwashed me, was holding just a child. And it came to my realization in that moment that I was being judged, and that I was looking at this situation from a different light, outside of my own selfishness and narcissism that I had going on within me, right? And to see what my next action would be, what truly lies within my heart. Is it care and empathy for humanity, or is it darkness and evil and just wants to hurt and selfishness? And I knew I was being judged in that moment. And I set Jameson down and I walked out, because he was already done with for the most part. And that was it. I went back to the speaker and I told the speaker, man, I'm done. I've done all the work that I need to do on this compound, because again, as a big white boy on that compound, you're expected to put in work. You're expected to put in work when it comes. Some find joy in it, some don't. I was kind of in the middle. Right? I was finding joy in alleviating all that anger and stress and hostility that I had in me, all that hatred that I had in me. But yet, I knew deep down that what I was doing was wrong. And I believe that's why I was touched that day. And from that point on, I never, ever touched anybody. I haven't been in an altercation. I haven't put my hands on nobody. And I've learned to steer myself clear of altercations, because I don't want to hurt nobody. I'm a peaceful man. And if that's what I got to do, is swallow my own pride in situations, my own ego in situations, to be that peaceful man, then that's what it's about. And that's what I learned. That's what I learned. So just know this and take this as a warning. If you're going to judge somebody else to the point that you're going to alter, like there's actions now to your judgment, you're putting actions behind your judgment, know that you will be judged as well. And your judgment is going to be just as severe as what you've been judging others to. So just know that and take that with you. And from this point, when I see things in my life that I disagree with, or that doesn't fit in my moral compass, or anything of that nature, I don't judge that situation. I just make sure that it's a beacon of light within me to tell me, okay, that's a reminder that not to become that, not to be that, to guard myself from being that, because life is showing me, warning me, that this is a possibility that a human can become this when you get wrapped up in your own selfishness, your own ego, your own narcissism, and you start putting that above humanity. So just be warned and check yourself, fool. I love y'all. Peace.